My name is Ryan Donovan, and this is Jeppe Grue. Together, we represent the product management leadership team at Sitecore. And what we really wanted to do, since we had so much great content this week, is wrap up the event with some content that you can use for talking with your customers about what's coming next with Sitecore. So, and just get right down to the brass tacks. So with that, I'm going to tee it up to Jeppe to introduce us and set the stage, and then we'll dive into our roadmap details.
Thank you, Ryan. So Sitecore has been around, as many of you know, since 2001, roughly. And in that time, the world around us has changed remarkably. I myself have been in Sitecore for about 7 years, so I've been on that journey for a while. From our very first patent with dynamic renderings and on the website to the first versions of Sitecore, the first CMS on ASP.NET, all the way through our evolution to the online marketing suite, our digital marketing suite, our first cloud edition, et cetera. And what we've been doing is adapting and changing to the needs of people who, which is what we figured out over the last few years, are really interested in talking about and having an experience, the brand who wants to have an experience with their customers. And with the advent of the 7X generation, we've built a data architecture and foundation around that experience. Darren, in his, certainly personally, I found it very inspirational. The keynote that he gave yesterday talked about context. Laurent mentioned it, although he said it, that both content and context were king. But content is still the currency of the modern marketer, and we've been working to make content as relevant, as dynamic, and as engaging as possible in Sitecore for many, many years. And it's still the coin we use to purchase a customer's attention. But of course, context surrounds our customers. And again, I'm repeating a little bit what Darren said yesterday. Sitecore Experience Platform 8 enables businesses to understand the context surrounding every individual visitor at the point of interaction and delivering what he or she needs exactly when he or she needs it. So if you look at the content they've looked at, gives the context about their interests, right? And so with Sitecore, we know we have the content, and it's reusable, it's brand consistent because it's in one place. What contact they've had clearly contextualizes them as prospects or customers, right? So what we know about them is the interactions they've had with us and where they've had them. What commerce they've transacted with you gives you context about their shopping preferences, their shopping frequency, their product ownership. And what customer interaction they've had provides context on loyalty, advocacy, support needs, etc. And so this contextual information exists throughout your organization in different places. In order to really understand the consumer, you need to centralize it and act upon it. And again, this is what can be referred to as context marketing. So as Sitecore has moved through the evolution of its platform, we've been establishing more and more actionable information and more and more ways to action upon context. So from our commerce, our Sitecore commerce offerings to our contact profile and our experience, all the information we have about the individual, to the way that people interact with the content itself. And of course, the center of that picture, everything you need to know about the consumer and how they've interacted with your brand, is the experience database. And all of this contextual data, and Laurent spoke very eloquently about it just before, was it requires data. These are data points from our experience profile. And so if you think about where we need to evolve in this journey that we're on, where we with 8.0 gave the functional foundation based upon a strong data architecture of customer experience management, the next part of the picture to refine this customer experience management system that provides context and would allow us to be this preferred tool for experience developers, merchandisers, and marketers is really about integrating easily all of the data that relates to the consumer, whether it be commerce, whether it be content-related data, whether it be data that exists in other systems that are either bespoke customer relationship management systems or ERP systems. As well as ensuring that we have a well-orchestrated view of every single channel and location, the physical locations that Darren spoke of yesterday, in which they interact. And that's really the journey that we're on in terms of our roadmap. So that means if you look at what's needed to achieve this, our overall investments in Sitecore are in 5 main areas. One is obviously the experience platform, which is covers a number of features and constitutes this functional foundation, which both involves the channels themselves, whether it be email or social or print, the analytics that you gather from that information, and the way that you action that either through your website, through personalization, through optimization. And we have a desire to release a new version of our experience platform around about twice a year. You'll be seeing the first release of that in a few weeks, the first release of this year anyway, with Sitecore Experience Platform 8.1. And I'll get back to some of the highlights there. And of course, we also aim to release a version of commerce hot on the heels as much as is practical or possible.
But in this case, we are actually holding the release to align to one of our partners' releases, which is Microsoft Dynamics AX7, which is going to be available just around the turn of the new year.
So from a commerce perspective, it's built on the latest version of Sitecore. So Commerce 8.1 will be built on 8.1. Commerce 8.2 will be built on 8.2, et cetera. At the same time, we also recognize that there are areas of investment which are important to accelerate. Email Experience Manager is one of those. So we will be releasing every single quarter, and have done for the last two quarters, a new version of the Email Experience Manager, built on whatever the current version of Sitecore's Experience platform is. And I'll get back to more on that later. And of course, the cloud continues to, you have both the luxury and the opportunity to release recurring or more regular deployments on the cloud part. So we'll continue to do that as needed and required, and as opportunity knocks.
Now, a couple of other points is that we will be ensuring that we have platform as a service support commensurate with each release of the Experience platform, and that we will be also having our cloud services updated to be available synonymous with each underlying platform release as well too. That was a case where, mea culpa, in Sitecore 8 we waited quite a number of months on the Azure module, but that's not something we intend to do going forward. So you can trust and count on that cloud will be available at the same time as the on-premise software.
And we're of course committed to our customers and partners getting quicker value out of Sitecore in their businesses. So we will continue and indeed accelerate our support for our update or sustain engineering process. So we'll be releasing a faster cadence of upgrade releases for the Experience platform. I'll get back to that in a second later. But it's important that we are well-founded in your current installations and the current versions that you're supporting, and continue to bring quality to those.
Maybe a bit of an eye chart, but just for clarity, we are going to be putting our sustained engineering focus on 7.2, 8.0, and 8.1 specifically, as they represent the most the most popular versions of Sitecore in market today, and that what we're anticipating going forward with 8.1.
And we'll of course continue to support the other versions, but if we're looking at targeted updates, that's really the versions that we'll be focusing on. So just to contextualize these overall investments, these are the areas we're investing in because we believe that this is what's going to give the best information around the context that the customer operates in, and then in the context in which they're interacting with your brands. If we look at 8.1, which is our coming release, and there's a lot of features on here. I don't expect you to read them all on here. I think one of the important things about this slide is that with every single release of the Experience platform, we have a few key targeted new features, and I'll go through a few of them in a second. We're always working on continuous improvement of our existing applications in releases. In some releases, we focus on some applications more than others. And we're always working on the foundational architecture because the Experience database and our content databases, our UI foundation, is really the key differentiator in terms of having an integrated customer experience platform. To call out a few of the features that we have in 8.1, specifically around the context of consumers. When you're thinking about how to interact with consumers, the devices upon which they interact and the time they interact with those devices is really, really important. So you want to make sure to reach people on the right device at the right time when they are on their iPhone, on the train, or on their laptop computer in the office. So we have a new device detection service built in, supported by Sitecore, which is fully integrated. So it's integrated into your analytics reports. There's default personalization rules. There is, and it's a service you can subscribe to with a trusted provider, a trusted partner of ours. And it's directly integrated as a cloud service. It is, of course, extensible as well. So for those of you who have existing device detection vendors, that possibility is there for you. So I talked about the devices themselves, but what's just as important is where the consumers are, whether they're outside a physical location or in their home. And of course, we have the IP geolocation services, which we've had previously as a kind of an add-on separately. That's now, again, completely baked into the Sitecore platform and supported by the Sitecore platform with default rules, with default reports based on location, etc. Coming back to this idea of location, the venue in which interactions take place is incredibly important. And that can be, so one thing is the actual physical coordinates. Sure, that's interesting, but if you're a brand, your physical presence has a structure and a taxonomy that's important to your business. If you have retail stores in different geographical areas, they can have different sizes, different types of brands, different specialities. And that's what you can use this idea of venue for. And so whether it's a small Starbucks coffee stand or one of the large kind of music cafes that they have, those are two different venues with two different kind of brand product and campaign paradigms. And so if I'm a brand, I can make sure to use Sitecore to define that taxonomy, to define your venues that you have in a way that makes sense, that you want to measure as your business, and track that in the Experience database. And that's something we've introduced in 8.1. And of course, just as important to that is the devices on people upon which people interact, the places that they do it in, and the venues that they interact with your brand in, is all leading towards some business-defined outcomes. Darren talked about outcomes yesterday, and we have, as part of 8, we introduced outcomes as a way of identifying those business drivers and measuring against them. That is fully integrated with default reports, again, default rules in the Sitecore platform in 8.1. Excuse me. And of course, once you have that data, you're actually able to use it. We've also introduced what we call the campaign creator, which allows you to, again, use our flexible taxonomy that can be customized to your business needs according to what kind of campaigns you run, how you want to measure it, whether you have different business units who are responsible for the ROI of your campaigns or not. And we give you a simple speak-based user interface which allows you to create and classify campaigns. And that's the first of many of such interfaces that we're going to be introducing in the coming versions of Sitecore. And of course, once you've launched your campaigns, made them relevant to the segments, the consumable devices, the locations and the venues in which people are interacting with them, and you've used that to drive outcomes that you desire, we have a continually evolving experience analytics platform that you can use. And Lars Peterson and Chris showed you the new path analysis that we have. Some of the things that we have in 8.1 there are really quite cool in the way that you can analyze sequences of interactions, whether it be which sequences of channels that led to desired outcomes, or sequences of goals, or even look at paths to a specific goal, whether it be which venues or outcomes led them to, or which goals led people to a specific outcome, what venues they were in. So this really kind of an advanced sequence analyzer, the path analysis tool, which we have a wealth of default maps that you can use. And of course, you can filter the information according to the segments that are important to you. So that's what we're coming out with in a couple of weeks. Sitecore Experience Platform 8.1.
Now we're going to shift gears and talk about what's going to be coming in the middle of next year, which is the Experience Platform 8.2. So what we've tried to really do here is really focus on what's going to really drive adoption and also for our existing customers, reduce pain. So on the driving adoption side, we're introducing a key new feature to XDB known as XConnect. And what XConnect is it's an API for XDB. It'll allow you to easily integrate data from other platforms into XDB. So take a use case of I want to pull data from my point of sale system, my contact center system, et cetera, and have that show up on the experience profile. That's one solution. That's one path of using XConnect. The other piece would be getting data out of XDB. So for example, let's say you want to feed a machine learning platform or Power BI or some other type of BI solution, or you just frankly have something that needs the downstream data like an ERP or something. You now have a path to get that data out of XDB. And so with this, we expect that our customers and partners will be able to easily extend XDB and then fully integrate it with the rest of their business. As a consequence of doing this, XDB itself effectively becomes a service. And this is a great win for a number of reasons. One, it's going to give you, as a developer, full abstraction from storage so that you are going to have a very well-documented, easy-to-use API as opposed to having to, say, write a Mongo query directly. The other good news is that for customers that wish to use XDB Cloud, it will give you feature parity. There's just a little kind of minor problem about giving open connection strings to databases over the internet, especially ones that contain PII data. So this gives us a way to actually give you access to the data in a secure way when operating with XDB Cloud. Then we've heard very loudly and very clearly what a pain Sitecore is to upgrade, especially if you're on an older version and need to get to a newer version. And so we're going to be introducing a feature known as Express Upgrades. And the point of Express Upgrades will be to allow you to migrate directly from Sitecore 6.6 and directly from Sitecore 7.2 to 8.2 without having to actually go through all of the 7 and 8x releases in between. So we hope that will definitely make it easier for you to get current and use all of the new capabilities in the platform that have happened since 6.6. A big change in our focus over the last 6 months has been really looking at the needs of our enterprise customers. They have very strong and stringent demands for very good business reasons. Many of them happen to be in regulated industries. We're getting ourselves into the e-commerce space and now have to care about things like PCI compliance. And so to do that, we've actually allocated dedicated resources within the product department just to focus on these areas. And so we're going to be producing, I'd say, a much higher degree of documentation around how to properly harden Sitecore. We're going to be making sure that we're designing with privacy and compliance in mind for all new features going forward. There's actually going to be formal quality reviews around those things when we come up with new features to make sure that we're not doing things we shouldn't be. We're going to be putting a huge emphasis on performance and scalability. So what we're going to be doing there is taking, I'd say, a combination of our worst case customer scenarios that we've identified in terms of data sizes and data shapes, number of languages, traffic, etc. We're going to put it through its paces in the lab. And then from that, we're going to give you much more precise information around, one, how to set it up, and two, what type of results you can expect if you want to deploy Sitecore at very large scales or maximize the throughput that you can get from the platform itself. And then lastly, we've turned our eyes inwards and really looked at areas of the product that are causing our ecosystem pain. And we are initiating a series of focused improvements, which Jeppe will talk more about later, to really reduce customer pain in those areas. So good examples, we're going to have major investments planned in publishing, MVC, Sitecore Services Client, item buckets, et cetera, in the 8.2 release to really look at the things that are causing pain day to day to make them actually go away. So a lot of key investments there.
And just to dwell on the XConnect for a second, if you think about this consumer database in the middle, which is the experience database, it's a seminal step forward to be able to easily get all of the data that surrounds it, all of those touch points that provide context into this consumer database and out again. It really is what's going to enable us to have a truly customer-focused view that is actionable. We see it as a seminal step in our history.
So now let's talk about commerce, one of our other big investments. So 8.1, when it comes out just after Christmas, is got a number of new capabilities, some power user UX enhancements for merchandisers, fully enabling commerce insights through the experience profile, support for the latest from our friends in Redmond with support for Dynamics AX7, as well as running Sitecore Commerce powered by Commerce Server using Azure Platform as a Service via the Azure module. And lastly, we have heard the feedback loudly and clearly that it's just a little bit difficult to get up and running. So we've put a lot of focus and completely revamping the entire install and config process to the point that it's just a series of packages and then a series of PowerShell commands to configure just exactly what it is that you want to use. You don't have to actually configure everything, as is the case with the current product. And then there's Commerce 8.2. So don't let the 8.2 fool you at all. This is a major release and culminates, I'd say, the first phase of the journey begun when Sitecore decided to start pursuing the enterprise commerce space. This will feature a complete revamp of the entire business user experience. Everything will be speak-based and inside of the Sitecore with a consistent look and feel. This includes complete set of customer order management functionality for the customer service representative personas, as well as a greatly enhanced set of pricing and discount and offer management capabilities as part of Merchandising Manager. And this is all going to be built on our next generation commerce foundation, which makes its debut in the 8.2 release. This is built on a modern technology stack, Microsoft's very latest ASP.NET 5 technologies, and integrated through Commerce Connect. And what this will provide is, firstly, a modern order management system. I would characterize the product today as order capture. This is order management. So things like changes to orders, either self-service or through a CSR after the fact, returns, et cetera, are now part of the platform. On the same side of things is dynamic pricing, having full rules-based pricing, multiple prices per product, et cetera, all right there in the 8.2 release. We're also adding what's known as entitlement support to handle things like subscriptions, access to digital goods, and or loyalty reward programs. Where do we think we're going to end up? Basically having something that's very much a market parity for enterprise B2C scenarios in the 8.2 release. So we're very excited about that and hope you are as well too when it comes up next year. Now, Jeppe, could you share with us a bit about what we're doing with EXM?
Absolutely. So as I mentioned before, we are committed to the email, being part of the email campaign management space. Email is a proven and tested customer acquisition and retention strategy. You could think of it as the most effective tool at pulling off the Mardi Gras mask from an anonymous consumer, right? And engaging in a more substantive dialogue. We are committed to creating a dependable email product which can work to enterprise scale with the unparalleled personalization features and customer experience integration that you come to expect from Sitecore. With EXM 3.2, which will be released in a couple of weeks to coincide with the release of Sitecore Experience Platform 8.1. We've really looked at the scaling and enhancement, the scaling and performance part of the equation to be able to scale to the mail requirements of many millions of mails a month. The tests that I've seen are actually outstripping our internal goals by quite a bit. We've also worked a lot on trying to scale out architecturally so you can have a dedicated email servers once you hit a certain tipping point where that's required. And that also means that the communications that go across the wire from the email platform need to be isolated and have a dispatch and a task management functionality that go with it. So that makes it even more resilient and able to scale in complex environments. And what we've really done is focused on the user experience. We've made it simpler. We've made it significantly quicker. Those of you who saw my presentation yesterday saw that a live demo of that. So the aim is really that you can get to sending an email campaign, selecting recipients, personalizing the content, and sending out that mail in a very short period of time. I did it yesterday in around about 5 minutes while talking. As we continue to the next quarter, so around about the beginning of next year, we'll be releasing EXM 3.3, which is very much focused around reporting, so that you get a quicker overview of all of the great data that we're actually collecting, but also at a much more granular level on the individual. For many, particularly B2B businesses, understanding exactly what the individual has done, down to the click, the duration of the visit, the value that they've created is important. We have that data, and we're surfacing it in a much easier way to consume. The other thing that's important when you're sending email and engaging that way is really knowing that it gets to people's inbox and it does so quickly and in a dependable manner. It doesn't go into your spam box, etc. Part of that is really this end-to-end, very complex process of a delivery assurance, right? So whitelisting, bounces, gray listing, et cetera, that our email partner is really an expert in, and surfacing those reputation management services natively in the Sitecore UI as part of these dashboards is also something we focused very much on. And of course, we're going to continue to scale to more and more emails, to be able to deliver more and more emails quicker. And we're looking, so technically there are no real upper limits on the actual email experience manager itself in the way that can send mails. But by binding the APIs much closer to our email partners, we're able to ramp up the time to have assured delivery and the amount of mails we can handle quite significantly. And we're going to continue in every single release to go out to our users, go out to the people who are using the email campaign manager, work with them, observe them, do usability testing, and keep improving the UX continuously. It's vital for us that this becomes the preferred tool for those who are working with email.
All right, let's talk a little bit about our cloud aspirations and plans. So first, I'll talk about what we've got coming this fall as part of the general 8.1 product wave. So for XDB Cloud, we'll have an API added where you can actually measure and monitor your usage of the cloud service itself. And then we're going to have our big news, which is really the release of the Experience Platform Cloud Edition for the first time. So this is something that's going to start small, and it will grow bigger with time. So our initial release will be limited to some fixed topologies. It's really aimed at partners, really need to have environments that they can spin up and get up and running quickly. That's really the aim of it. And then this will be expanded over time to include a much broader array of offerings. And just because I know it's going to be the next question, the pricing and licensing details are forthcoming on this. I won't be able to comment on those today, but needless to say, we think you'll like it when it's available in the not-too-distant future. Then there's the Azure module. This, unlike last time, as I noted, this will be available with Sitecore 8.1 Update 1 just about a month after initial release. So that will give you the ability to deploy in Azure Platform as a Service on your own. Then let's talk about our plans for next year. So obviously, XConnect is going to be a game changer for XDB Cloud. That will give you the ability to actually work with XDB with a full feature set versus the, I'll say, hardened and locked down environments that you have today for very good reasons. And then additionally, we'll be adding constantly throughout the year more self-service APIs so that you as the customer have more and more control over your environment, all without needing to have necessarily access to the bare metal. And then we will have obviously non-production instances as well too, like real non-production instances that have obviously a lower price point than what we have currently today. Then obviously the Experience Platform Cloud Edition is going to grow as I mentioned. But the really big news is for those of you that want to deploy on Azure on your own, you won't have to use the Azure module anymore. Why? Because we're going to actually adopt the standard web deploy mechanisms in Visual Studio so that you have complete control within the bounds of the license you've purchased to deploy it on Azure any way you see fit. So that is our cloud plans for 2016.
Ryan mentioned earlier our focused improvements initiative. This is a dedicated investment to analyzing the areas which are causing customers to get value slower out of Sitecore, slower than we'd like. It's really an aim to quicken the path to getting the most business value out of a Sitecore solution. And what we'd like to do is obviously focus around the versions we talked about before. And our aim is that 50% of the existing relevant or prioritized customer tickets will be closed. So we did an analysis of all of the customer-related tickets that we have, and we aim in the next 12 months to close 50% of the ones that, obviously there are some that either are edge cases or are no longer relevant in our infrastructure. But 50% of those will be closed. Now, all of the research that we've done in our industry tells us that this is completely unprecedented. And if you look at some of our competitors, we have a significantly lower amount of known issues than they do. So this is completely unprecedented. And we'll be doing that by releasing every 4 weeks an update, whether it's on 7.2 or 8 or 8.1, but it will have a continuous cadence. Every 4 weeks you will get your existing issues fixed, issues you haven't even encountered or know about on your version, you'll get those fixed. So, of course, we've looked at the areas with most identified related customer tickets, and we've put a special focus around those. But we've also engaged with select customers who have particularly what Ryan called worst case, but challenging setups either due to scale, geography, or complexity. And of course, we're working very closely with the Accelerate program, which are the first kind of 28.0 customers, and we'll be working continuously with early adopters of all of our versions, helping them get the most value out of Sitecore, and looking at those places where that's it is not as smooth as you'd like. In addition, obviously there are things that we can fix in updates, but as Ryan alluded to earlier, there are other things that indicate areas where we want to put some focus that we need to do longer programs on, which will be released in major versions. So Ryan, for example, mentioned publishing and MVC as 2 areas where we have particular focus, where you'll be seeing improvements in the 8.2 and time frame and potentially beyond. And this is really a part of a sustained effort in engaging with our customers and partners. Without you and this incredible dedicated community that you are, we are nothing. And you'll see that in 8.1, that our primary driver for everything we've done in that has really been a conversation with the early adopters of that product. Everything that's in there has been the fruit of some kind of conversation or inspiration from a customer. And we'll continue this with the Accelerate program, as I mentioned. We're also looking at our overall product feedback channels. How can you impact the product more? I talked about this yesterday, whether it be through usability studies, observing you on site, the ability for you to give feedback on the desired products that you have, product features or areas of focus for us. It's absolutely vital to us that we have open and transparent communication on that. So you'll be seeing more initiatives from our part on that to reach out to you and for you to be able to impact the product. And that's not just on kind of the brand or the business user side. It's also on the developer persona.
Exactly, because one of the things that we've been very focused on the last couple of years is building up all of this great, business user-centric functionality. But we perhaps overdialed it a little bit too much and forgot about our core ecosystem, which is really our partners and the developers that actually build solutions with Sitecore, and the IT pros that keep the lights on at night and make sure the site's up and running and healthy. And so what we've done is we've established a technical product management discipline within the product organization to be staunch advocates for the developer and IT pro persona. And we're going to be ensuring in each release going forward that we have a strong technical focus on technical excellence and a strong technical agenda to, 1, keep the platform current, but 2, keep improving the lives of our developers and IT pros themselves. So that's something I'm personally very excited about in the near future.
And of course, we can come out with new features. We can fix issues or focus on problematic areas of the platform. But the things that we already have that do work, it's important that you understand how that works. So we'll also be making a significant effort around our documentation, both the nature of it, including more of the passionate contributors such as yourselves in the documentation process, as well as looking to give best practices for the areas in which, for areas which will allow you to much quicker get value out of your Sitecore solution. So you'll be seeing a sustained and committed effort in that area. As I said, this is all of these initiatives are really a humble recognition of the incredible community that Sitecore has. When I walked in here yesterday morning, I was truly humbled and amazed that a self-organized user conference could draw so many people from so many different disciplines. I think it's incredible. And what I can say to you is thank you, and we'll be in touch.
With that, we'd also this is the end of the event, so what we'd like to do is thank all of the event sponsors, and also, I'd say individually, the Herculean efforts of Mike and Akshay for putting on a great show. So thank you.
They've done a fantastic job.
And with this, we have a few minutes for some questions, so let's get some Q&A started. If you're interested, please just come up to the mic so that we can capture it for posterity.
Hey, my question surrounded in 8.2, you're announcing kind of the support for direct platform as a service deployment via Visual Studio. Is there any plans for supporting anything beyond platform as a service, say looking at Azure websites or any sort of containerized format for running Sitecore?
Actually, that's a great question. So we will be doing, the PaaS deployments actually will be to Azure Web Apps, which is the new name for websites. We are actually basing our entire, and after a lot of, I'd say, very constructive dialogue with our friends in Redmond, we've basically made the determination that Web Apps is the right future for Sitecore on Azure.
Don't be shy.
Oh, come on, you're making
Really? This is the least questions I've ever had for a roadmap presentation. Excellent.
So I saw you mention the V5 for ASP.NET for Commerce Server. Mm-hmm. I guess, do you see that on the roadmap for Sitecore? And do you also see supporting running Sitecore on Linux in your roadmap?
Fantastic question. So long term, we're going to base our .NET determination on what I say the adoption of ASP.NET V5. I'd say it's a matter of when, not if, that we're going to support V5, but I can't be more precise on the timing because right now, today, there's effectively zero adoption. That being said, as we do migrate platform components over to V5, we're going to do so in a best practices manner to try and target the core CLR as much as possible without reinventing wheels that don't exist. But what I would say, the way to properly think about this is that when ASP.NET V5 starts to gain market adoption, then that's when you'll see us start transitioning more and more things to it. But we will realize that we have a very large install base and a number of customers running with web forms, and there's no web form story in V5. That process will take time and be a series of parallel tracks, effectively. But for net new developments, and I think there's very little code we wanted to keep on the Sitecore Commerce side of that piece. That was a case of where we decided, okay, it makes sense to make it a .NET 5 service that then plugs into 4.6 through Commerce Connect. And you'll see us probably do more and more things like that in the future where we start adding just massive new areas of functionality.
All right, anyone else? We got one more, I think.
This is a licensing question.
Oh,
Do you
best
know if
kind.
Sitecore has any intentions to release a SaaS-based model or subscription licensing option anytime soon?
That's a great question. We are very actively looking at that because we realize we can't offer first-party cloud services without having those types of pricing models. And so stay tuned. We'll have more in the, I'd say in weeks and months ahead on that.
All right, I don't see any others coming up to the stand. So thank you very much. Don't forget to sign up for the Sitecore End User Council so that you can have a direct impact on the product. That's on the SUGCON website, right in the front. So please do that. And thank you so much for coming and attending this conference. I personally have found it deeply inspiring and energizing. And I hope you found the same.
Likewise, thank you very much on behalf of Sitecore.